Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of Coloring Outside the Box. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about the energies we'll be dealing with as we wander through the sign of Gemini. Now, I've always called my monthly forecast Star Trek, and that's not going to change. I like the name and I like the format. And so the format is this. I will talk in terms of moonbeams, which is obviously the new moon and the full moon. Then we'll move on to twinkles, which are the energies you can call upon to be supportive or uplifting or fun, or the protections that we might be able to call upon if things get a little tough. Next will be black holes, and I'm sure that's fairly obvious. Black holes are the parts of this month's journey that you may find difficult, overwhelming, challenging, and what you might do about that. And finally, we'll be delving into deep space. And deep space is more connected to our internal journey, our feelings, the things we need to call on from deep within to cope with what's going on and actually to transform and change our lives. So just, once a month, I will be doing this particular Star Trek podcast. And you can always look for it on the Wednesday prior to the sun changing signs. Now, of course, this one is a little bit different because I decided to make it as part of my launch. And being an avid astrologer, I chose, I asked another astrologer if I could talk I'd be dangerous to help me pick a great time to launch this podcast. And I didn't want to miss the opportunity to do the Gemini Star Trek episodes. So we're doing the first two together. Anyway, enough of all of that. So what can we expect? Well, the new moon, we're going to talk about the new moon first because it passed yesterday. And in lots of ways, it's going to lighten our mood. It's a new moon that's going to make us feel, once again, that things are possible. Because, of course, in the world of Gemini, there's no shortage of adventure, experience, because Gemini is all about experience and about reporting what that experience is. So we may find that, that suddenly we're able to talk about what we've been feeling and what we've been going through over the last 2 or 3 months, that our thoughts might actually coalesce into something that we truly understand. This new moon is also, quite strongly impacted from a need to get going, to get moving, it's interesting because there's been a lot of opening up again since we've been, in quotes, shut down in so many ways for the last 3 months. So there's going to be some need to get moving, but there can also be a little bit of anxiety, not knowing exactly, well, what information can I believe? Is everything that's being said true? So here's the deal. The new moon is always highly instinctual. So listen as much as you want to be able to put things in some sort of mental perspective. Remember that you need to also listen to your inner self when it gives you, tries to connect the dots between all of those facts. You may find you feel a little angry at times, and you may feel that you've been constrained or boxed in for too long. And nobody can argue that that's actually true. So the key is not to resist that as much as it is to find appropriate, productive, and useful ways to be active. And not ignore the fact that, that what we've been dealing with is not even remotely resolved yet. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to deep space. Next, the full moon. So when the full moon shows up, the full moon is always about bringing everything into the light and being able to see it clearly. So you will have really a tremendous opportunity when we hit the full moon which is June the 5th, I believe, because I'm not looking at my notes right now, we will get a chance to see how what we've been thinking and believing and trying to process, how it actually is impacting us. Because we've been doing a lot of bouncing around. And now, because there's so much focus on thinking versus believing, facts versus wisdom, it's an opportunity as we hit this full moon to try to bring some light or some wisdom into our experience, as opposed to continually thinking that if we just, interestingly enough, think our way through this, that somehow that's going to make a difference. So the full moon will be also an opening, but we're going to feel like we want to move forward and really give her, for want of a better expression, really put the pedal to the metal, and yet we're still going to feel uncertain, and we're still going to feel like this is a journey that hasn't ended, which is true. It is a journey that has not ended. So now here we are at black holes. Well, as much as things lighten up, we are still going to feel like we're on a roller coaster. Things are still feel jumbled and difficult. One moment is going to be, yeah, I'll be fine, I can deal with this, and the next minute is going to be, oh my God, is this ever going to end? Now, I'm not saying that that's a new feeling, because it's not. However, when we're talking about black holes this year, it really goes, January, the beginning of January, just a little bit of astrology talk, even though I promised I wouldn't. There was an eclipse and some coming together of really powerful energies, which accelerated what was already in motion. And as much as we don't feel like anything's moving, because in the physical world, it still is yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. So we're going to still be confronting the fact that things are not back to normal, because whatever the normal was before is not the new normal. Now and the difficulty is we don't know what the new normal is. Well, I just want to say one thing about that. When we're looking at the energies of this year, there's at least 5 important initiation points in this year, and I will be talking about that in a subsequent podcast. There is the need to move forward, and yet the feeling that we're stuck. And this is going to play out through much of this year. The key for movement is not necessarily outside us as much as it is inside us. But we don't have to leave behind all of the structures that actually worked in our lives prior to this. Sometimes it's important to remember that in history, humans have an incredible capacity to take on the most difficult situation and somehow turn it around, change it, transform it. And that's part of the energy that we're dealing with, is there's a push for transformation. But in order to facilitate that, and it's a transformation that seems, not just doesn't seem, does affect the entire planet. And we really don't know what that's about. And of course, part of the difficulty in this aspect is uncertainty. We are now well aware that life is always going to be uncertain, and you don't have to like that. However, there will be a need to accept it. Of course, this leads me to one of my favorite things, which is liking things is not the same as accepting things. So your part of you can accept that something is true, and the rest of you can go, I don't like that at all. And you don't have to like it. Nobody's asking you to like it. Really liking it as much as that's important to how you see the world, isn't necessarily the same as accepting the fact that it's true. For example, many people have said, that they think that there's been an overreaction, that they don't like what's going on. But the key is we can't go back and change what's already happened. We can only choose to take what is going on and do the very best that we can. And I don't mean that there's not going to be difficulties. In fact, they're staring us right in the face. And so this month we get a really clear picture, or how should I say, a much clearer picture of exactly what we might be dealing with. And so now on to deep space. I think I missed twinkles. Oh my God, I missed twinkles. So before we go to deep space, let's talk about twinkles. I guess the energy meant that I needed to talk about black holes before we talked about twinkles. So in this particular, in twinkles, I know you're going to wonder if there is anything to feel twinkly about. Well, there is. Because if anything, we've discovered how kind we can be to each other and how much we know how to listen when the going gets tough. I know in my country, every Sunday at noon, people stand outside, if they're comfortable, and sing "O Canada." And I know in other countries in the world, there have been similar things, salutes to essential workers, salutes to your country, to the things that connect us, and to understand that connection transcends physicality. And besides, we have so many methods of communication these days. We can remain connected. But Twinkles this month is a lot about knowing, where our connection comes from, where kindness goes, saying hello to people that you don't know, because there's a kindness and a joy in that. And remembering small things, the little things, the things that we sometimes take for granted. Gratitude. It's not always easy to feel gratitude at a time when everything is upside down, because there's some degree of upside down in everybody's life right now. So reach out to people. If you're walking by someone and you want to say hello, say hello. If you're on Facebook and you see someone that you may just be Facebook friends with and you've never met in your entire life, send them an emoji. Make people laugh. That's going to be, we need to remember how to laugh. Because times like this make us feel like there's nothing joyful, no light, nothing funny, nothing fun. The energy's been so intense. We're going to feel like doing those things. Any kind of self-care is also important. Get out in your garden, go for a walk. Do a jigsaw puzzle. I did one last week. Anything that helps clear your mind of fear, because there's a lot of it. This is so making connections, entertaining ourselves. And I don't necessarily mean throwing a party, unless it's an online virtual party. Now, those things may not sound as weighty or as important as the stuff I talked about before, but they are. Absolutely, they are. A smile here, a kind word there, those things because they're filled with light, carry so much more they have so much more impact than we sometimes think. How many times have you felt really good just because someone smiled at you and told you that they loved you, or that they were cared about you, or how are you, or sent you a funny video to watch? So, and now we're going to talk about deep space, because all of this leads into what's going on the inside, because that is where our strength lies. You know, I often talk about and think about my forebears who came to the province in Canada that I live in with hardly anything to their names and no idea at all about farming at all. And they came to uh, the bald-headed prairie and started afresh and created a foundation for their families. They didn't know that's what they were doing. They hoped that's what they were doing. And where I live in Canada, it gets really cold in the wintertime. And I remember my great grandmother once saying that she wished that the League of Nations, which was the precursor to the United Nations, could come to their part of the world and see how different people from different cultures pulled together to support each other and build a life, because you couldn't do it all by yourself. I mean, I live in a part of the world where, if I'm being generous, winter is at the shortest 5 months long. They faced the elements. They faced poverty. They faced starvation. They didn't have the structures in the world that we do. But we have the same things that they had, which is belief in self and the capacity to prevail against what seemed to be overwhelming odds. So, as you know, the messages around deep space month by month this year are going to be very similar. This month, we're going to feel that we really wish that we could just tidy this up in a nice intellectual, logical, rational box with a bow on top, and somehow make sense of all of this, because then we can move on. And the message is, you know, allow awareness, but refrain from expecting that you can know everything now. You don't know it factually, you won't know it emotionally, and you won't know it physically either. We're still in the middle of whatever this is, because the pandemic is omnipresent and it's consumed us all in one form or another. Some of us more than others, because it's challenged some of us in much deeper ways than it's challenged other people, because your physical and your emotional and your intellectual well-being are overwhelmed to the point where, you know, you may not be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But trust me, there will be a light at the end of the tunnel. And that if you can resist going into whatever looks like darkness to you, and the more that you resist, the more fear you're going to encounter. That's just the truth, and that's fine. I want you to understand whatever your journey looks like is whatever your journey is. Just acknowledge that's your journey. Our biggest challenge this month is not going to revert to an overwhelming need to be in denial. That's not, you know. The biggest challenge on an inner level this month is just going, yeah, this is the way that it is. And what inside me is, what about me is going to prevail? What about me can I call on to grow my life, not contract it, because I know we're in the middle of a feeling that everything is contracting. No, and sometimes contraction is part of change. And often it is. We have to really let go of stuff that doesn't work anymore. And we may be loath to do that, thinking that doing so is just going to put it at greater risk. Right now it is often going to feel like life is a crapshoot, which isn't necessarily untrue. Anyway, just know that you have the strength and the determination and a deep light or a strong light inside you that will help you with this. So make sure you do the things that make you feel alive. Sometimes that is confronting crap that makes you feel alive, because that's part of taking charge of your life. And right now it may not feel like we can take charge of much of anything, but we can take charge of our own space, both inner and outer. Nobody's taken that away from us. At least I hope not. I can't say categorically that's not true, because I don't know the circumstance of every person that may be watching this podcast. And so as I bring this to a close, I want to say I send you all love and light. And I know that you're all, I don't know what to say. It's going to sound sentimental and gushy, and I can be sentimental and gushy. But I know each and every one of you is a human of great value and great beauty. And so I want to say ta-ta for now. Much love. And again, you can look for my next podcast next Wednesday. Not sure what the topic will be yet. Tune in and find out. Bye-bye.